Greetings YouTube, and welcome to my video. There we go. Alright, my friend Jan asked me a couple of questions recently, and they broke broadly into two different topics. Player motivations and what is the appeal of evil to people in a role-playing game. So, I haven't got around to the player motivation yet, but I've been thinking about the evil thing quite a bit. So here's the thing that I'm thinking. For me, the main difference between evil and good is the difference between selfishness and selflessness. Now I'm going to be looking at the 3.5 Pathfinder 9 block alignment setting. I realize that in a lot of settings they don't have alignments, they're edgier and they're things like that, but at the moment just entertain me here. So for me, when it comes to good, you have lawful good, neutral good, and chaotic good. And the chaotic good is the radical individualism variety of good. It's all about their own freedom, but not at the expense of others. And they're very much pro other people's freedom. They're the people that get in the street and they're really active. They are progressives. Then you have the lawful good people on the other end of the spectrum. And they're about stability. They're about the rule of law. So long as that rule of law does not harm others. But it's a very rigid worldview. And then you have the neutral good, which in my opinion is the best and representation of good, because neutral good people are willing to use either law or chaos, depending on what is appropriate to the situation at hand. If radical individualism is what is called for, cool, we'll use that in this situation. If authoritarianism is called for in this situation, we'll use that. And they'll balance it, and they accept that it is a dynamic, complex, intersectional environment. Now on the other end of the spectrum, we have the evil. Lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. Now chaotic evil, to me, is again radical individualism, but it's about personal expression of your agenda and desire. But because it is so chaotic, because it is so unstructured, it is the ultimate expression of selflessness, of selfishness. You only care about you or what is in your immediate grasp. It is the perfect alignment for warlords. But beyond that warlord's grasp, things break down. To me, chaotic evil is not something any society of size can possess. You may have tribes controlled by one person, but beyond that cult of personality, the control breaks down and they splinter off and create their own little chaotic evil group. Unless they go join somebody else or decide they don't want to be chaotic evil. But it's about that personal, this is my domain. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the lawful evil people. They have an agenda. They've convinced themselves that this agenda is absolutely the best in the world. And if you disagree with them, they're willing to beat you, and if you don't come around, they're willing to kill you. Now the subtle ones will use other forms of manipulations, but that is the gist of it. They will absolutely do what they feel necessary so that you conform to what they view as the perfect social structure. And you go outside this, and they will kill you. And then you have neutral evil, which to my mind is the worst. It's not chaotic evil. It's not lawful evil. Because neutral evil, just like neutral good, will do whatever it has to maintain its control and its power base. Radical individualism involved? Sick the dogs on somebody. You've got the chaotic evil people around, use them. Lawful evil people? Use the authoritarianism when you need it. But you do whatever you have to do in that complex, dynamic, intersectional environment to keep your power base. And I think that's the attraction of evil, in my opinion. It's about me. Now, I've discussed chaotic neutral on my channel before. And for me, chaotic neutral is selfishness, but without malice. You won't hurt somebody to reach your agenda, but you also won't necessarily help them either. You may not let somebody die of thirst, but it also doesn't mean you're going to be their ally unless you get something out of it. You have a code, you're not willing to break it, but you're also not a good guy. Now, when you look at systems that don't have alignment structures, like, for example, I don't know of any real post-apocalyptic game that has one, or maybe After the Bomb does, or TMNT's After the Bomb, second edition, I think they may have Palladium's alignment structure to it, if I remember correctly. But lots of them don't. Like, there isn't a hint of, or a whiff of an alignment structure in Gamma World, or Mutant Epoch, or Mutant Year Zero, or the Morrow Project, or Aftermath. No, not at all. That's the real world in all its glory and its vileness. It's the best and the worst, the sacred and the profane. And again, I think it's about selfishness. This is about me. Now, you can't do that in the real world, at least not unless you're a sociopath. You may want to impose your will on the world around you, but most people aren't willing to go through what it would take to do it, which is be really, really horrible to other human beings. Some people are willing to do that. I'll avoid getting too political, but you can probably think of who I'm contemplating at the moment. He's orange. So I think that's the attraction. That, to me, is the appeal. It is selfish. I can remember playing a cyborg in a cyberpunk, in a post-apocalyptic setting once, and I was questioning someone, and they just weren't giving me the answers I wanted them to give me, and I realized why I really wasn't going to get anywhere. And he was this dude with like wings, like angel wings, like feathered angel mutant, X-Men kind of wings. So I just snapped one of his wings and shoved him off a building because he was of no use to me anymore. And then I walked away. I've played a character in a cyberpunk game who was also a cyborg, not a full conversion like the post-apocalyptic game was, but he was a cyborg, and he was deeply scarred, and he listens to especially rage metal, rape metal in his head on an endless loop. And when the chip ran out, I think it ran for 100 hours each chip. That would jar him, and he'd change the chip and start or reset the chip and go listen to it some more. But this constant unending screaming, driving beat inside his skull. And when he got out of a taxi one day, and some guy says, "I'll be 4570," he just tossed a grenade in the back seat and walked away because he didn't have the money and he just didn't care. That person's life meant nothing to him. And there is a certain freedom in that, in both those circumstances. But both of those characters were short-term for me. I couldn't do that long-term. I couldn't be that person. Because I'm a firm believer that we become who we pretend we are. And we're better off pretending we're good people than bad people. Because I don't want that to affect my real world. I don't want to start thinking that that's okay, because it isn't. So, I hope that answers your question, Jan, that I think the appeal is being selfish. Only having to think about yourself and nobody else. Whether it's a structured alignment system like Pathfinder has, or an unstructured alignment system like most other games possess, because they don't have an alignment system. So tell me, what do you folks think? For you, if you play evil characters in role-playing games, what's the appeal? Do you agree that it's a level of selfishness, Or is it something else? Am I missing some subtlety to it? Am I being too ham-handed here? Tell me. I want to know.